What's happening, y'all? Happy Thursday. Welcome to Johnny Gaz Live. It's just after 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It's Thursday, and we are live. Thank you guys so much for joining for another session. Of course, on Thursday, we're going to be whizzing around the Detroit sports scene, news, updates all night long. Of course, we're going to focus on our Lions. Can't get away from the offensive coordinator search. All the news and notes coming out of Liontown. We will dive into that today. It's going to be a great night. And honestly, tonight's going to be a lot about you guys. Thursdays are going to be a lot about the chat, the interaction, the engagement. What can we get into on these Thursday nights? It's going to be great. Appreciate you guys joining early and often. Don't know Grit, what's up? Thanks for getting involved early. It's nice to have you on the show on Tuesday. We had a fantastic conversation about the Detroit Lions upcoming free agents, who should stay and who should go. That is available on not only my channel, but there's been shorts cut and a ton of good stuff out there between myself and Don't Know Grit. We had a great conversation Tuesday. So again, thank you, buddy, for coming on the show. I appreciate it. Jason, what's up, buddy? He goes, Skubal, got a Minnesota fan in the house. Let the hypotheticals and mock drafts begin. Brother, you came to the right place. If that's what you're into, you have found the right channel. Hey, man, Minnesota beat Lions twice this year, so you got something over our head today, that's for sure, my man. Welcome to the chat. Make sure to hit that like button. If you are new to the stream, it's the best free way to help out the channel. Johnny Gaz Sports available on all your socials. If you look up at Johnny Gaz Sports, Facebook, YouTube, X, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all the goods, you will find daily Detroit Lions and NFL content. I appreciate you guys coming along for another ride here on Thursday. We got a lot to talk about. Pistons are in the midst of a battle with the Phoenix Suns. Right now, I have them up 104-100. Just under 2 minutes to go here in the fourth quarter. So we will monitor that as the Pistons take on the Bookerless Phoenix Suns this evening at Little Caesars Arena. So I welcome you guys on a Thursday. We're going to be buzzing through the Detroit sports scene. We're going to be talking Detroit Lions, of course, and then we are going to be getting into the divisional round matchups. We're going to dive into the NFL playoffs coming out of the chaos that was Wild Card Weekend. We talked about the lessons learned and what the Lions could take out of the football that we watched on Wild Card Weekend. Well, now we have divisional round football. Some would argue the best football of the year. I think the best sports watching of the year is Wild Card Weekend, but certainly divisional round is just as good. You got the best 8 teams left. You should have the best 8 teams left, and we're going to talk about that in detail. So we're going to spend some time on the divisional round games. It's going to be a great night. What's up, John Herman? How you doing? How else will I get my fix? Says I don't know Grit. That's a good point. I appreciate you joining us, buddy. Thank you so much for always hanging around the chat and now becoming more involved in the lives. I appreciate you, buddy. 105-100, minute 51 to go in the fourth. Pistons over the Suns. Currently, we will continue to monitor that result as we move about our evening. So Thursday, almost Friday, as I like to refer to it as. Now, I'm pretty lucky this week. I got the day off tomorrow. I had to take some time off, some PTO, to get some things done on a Friday. My son's got some stuff going on at his school, so I'm going to go up there. We're doing a little bowling session for him and his classmates. So you're able to come out and bowl with the kids. And I thought, heck, let's get involved. Let's do it. So much fun. So we're going to do that tomorrow. I got a doctor's appointment. Got some other stuff to take care of. Got the car in the shop. So we're being an adult tomorrow, but I do have some PTO from work. So I'm blessed. So it is my pseudo Friday today. So I'm excited to be with you guys for what will be a long weekend. I hope you guys are having an excellent week. I know in the dead of winter, especially here in upstate New York, all you guys that are joining me from Michigan or all throughout the Northeast or Midwest, you are in the middle of the dead of winter. And believe me, I know people are feeling it. So again, I appreciate you if you're coming to live. If this gives you a little bit of lift, a little bit of positivity in your week, again, I appreciate you guys so much. Like I say at the end of my lives all the time, taking care of yourself and your mental health is so important. Something that I do for my mental health. You guys get to sit and watch here with me. So appreciate you very much. What's up, Paul Jones? How you doing, brother? So let's start with our Lions. Obviously, biggest topic surrounding the Detroit Lions right now is their search for the offensive coordinator. More and more candidates come to light. More and more candidates come to light for the Detroit Lions and their offensive coordinator search. Mike McDaniel, obviously the big name when he was let go from the Miami Dolphins. And we talked about this when it first happened. And we all know what my wishes are. I mean, I would dream state want him to be the offensive coordinator. But ultimately, Mike McDaniel might be the most coveted name on the market now that John Harbaugh took the New York Giants head coaching job, which not a surprise there. Not a surprise there at all, but it does take one of those head coaching jobs off the market. And New York Giants, although they were not a great football team and haven't been consistently good over the past several years, I do think it's a high-profile job. So to have that one off the market, again, puts Mike McDaniel back in the spotlight for the Lions to have an opportunity to bring him on as their offensive coordinator. But again, new names have come to light. Former Falcons offensive coordinator Zach Robinson was added to the mix. He's going to be interviewing with the Lions Thursday. That just happened today. He was also interviewing for the Bucs job. Steelers offensive coordinator Art Smith. That was new to the mix here today as well. He's also a candidate for the Titans and Cardinals head coaching job. So again, that's another situation where will he be searching for head coach? And ultimately, is that the Lions' desire for an offensive coordinator? Steelers former OC Art Smith. And we know with the departure of Mike Tomlin, kind of put some things up in the air there in Steeler Town. Ultimately, the Steelers' offense has really been middle of the road the last several years with Art Smith as the offensive coordinator. So that doesn't necessarily excite me, but I'd love to hear from you guys. What do you think? Mike Kafka, yes. Don't know Grit. Yep, he's in the mix, of course. And I think that's where we start to talk about the experience. And it seems to me like the candidates that are now being identified for the Lions offensive coordinator job all seem to have that common theme. I mean, we did hear the David Blau. Initially, he went to the Commanders. There was some talk of Dan Orlovsky, but those are inexperienced offensive coordinators. Now you're starting to see really the crop of true candidates are really more in the experience category. It seems like that's really what the Lions are looking for. And that, to me, is their best bet. Somebody who's experienced in the offensive side of the football that allows Dan Campbell to relinquish that and have the confidence that you have someone there that can take that over, which allows Dan Campbell to be that CEO. We've talked about this over and over again. And I think that puts the Lions in the best position possible. So let me know in the chat, for all of the talk that we heard, all of the possible candidates that have been thrown out there to this point, Jake Peetz, the Seahawks pass game coordinator, the Ravens quarterbacks coach, T. Martin. Don't know Grit just mentioned Mike Kafka. That interview took place on Wednesday. So you have a lot of experienced players now into the mix. And I wonder, ultimately, how do these dominoes fall for the Lions to get their guy? And who do we think ultimately is that guy? So I'd love to hear from you guys in chat. Don't know says, I agree. I think like the person who takes over the offense has to be so in control that it's almost hands off for MCDC. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm getting at. 100%. We're on the same page. And I just think him as the director of operations, let's say, for the organization makes everything flow a little bit more smoothly. So this is a very important hire for the Lions, obviously. It will determine the direction of the offense. It may determine the direction of the offensive line and how they repiece this together. And ultimately, it determines what could be the Lions' fate next season. So it's a huge piece to the early part of this offseason. And I think the Lions want to get this right, and I think they want to get this done soon. That's the impression that I get, so that they can move about their offseason program and figure these other things out, because there's a lot of other questions. A lot of other questions. And one of those things that we had talked about on Tuesday was the Lions trying to get or form some sort of identity defensively. And it was so tough for them to do that, especially last year with all of the injuries and the safeties and the defensive backs, everything that was happening there. And that caused a lot of the other problems. Obviously, they've had issues on the defensive line. Their pressure rate, although good, is slow. And that working in conjunction with this injured secondary, it was just almost a lost cause. And when you have a young defensive coordinator, not that he's new to the system, but was new to being the ultimate guy in that role, there was a lot of pieces there that, again, I think worked against each other. So you have to now figure out what is your true identity defensively. Yes, you have Aiden Hutchinson. Yes, he's your motor and he's constantly going to be working for you. But what else can you provide to the defense to maybe bolster that? Make that even more of an asset for you. I mean, I hate even using the word opposite edge. I mean, it's almost a broken record now as a Lions fan, getting the opposite edge, something opposite Hutch. We've heard it. We've said it. But what is that move that ultimately puts the defense over the top, gives them that identity that they can carry through the 2026 season, so that when the ebbs and flows of the offense ultimately happen with a new offensive coordinator, potentially a new system, early on offensive line trying to gel. So a lot of things that will have to come together. And you hope that with a new and established defense identity that can carry you through. And we're going to talk about in the divisional round matchup sort of how that is so important and why that is so important. And we'll see that with some examples in the divisional round talk we're going to have in just a little bit. Cheers, everyone. Paul Jones says, I like Kafka. If you put Kafka in Detroit, it would be ridiculous. And I think, again, that I like as just a completely fresh perspective, but a guy that has experience. So I am, if it can't be Mike McDaniel, in my opinion, then I like Kafka. I like the idea of that. You know, I do think there is something to the Art Smith. There's something potentially to the Zach Robinson thing as well. That is, Zach Robinson in particular is a guy that they had requested to interview. He had been involved in the Rams passing game as a coordinator. So I think, again, there's a lot of ties back to him. So I think you could see that. I mean, Brad Holmes has come out and said they're leaving all options open. We talked about the Sheila letter that said that they would do what's necessary to get this back to where they want to be and win a championship. Those are Sheila's words. So somebody who's detail-oriented, able to command a room, has a clear offensive philosophy that comes in and has a plan, understands how they're going to use the talent within the Lions roster, and a guy that's confident and comfortable to navigate collaborating with Dan Campbell, which you have to imagine is kind of difficult to think about, considering what he's coming off of. He had to take the play calling away from his choice an offensive coordinator. That's not easy to do. It's a tough conversation. And when you put two strong personalities together, they got to find a way to mold and gel and figure that out. So some of these personalities, can they get comfortable in their collaboration? You can't force fit, right? I mean, that's the thing. You don't want to force fit anything. So if Mike McDaniel isn't the guy, or if anybody within the organization feels that isn't the right character to bring into the mix, or if him and Dan maybe wouldn't work well together, if anybody knows that or feels that within the organization, then that has to be talked about. That's a big piece to this. On top of, can they pay him enough money? Does he want to be here as the OC? There's all of those barriers, but you also just don't want to force fit because that's the it guy. It doesn't mean necessarily it fits the entire organization. Now, that's my dream scenario. Mike McDaniel is my dream fit. I think he's shown interest in being an OC in the right situation. We've read that. We've seen that over the course of this last week. At this point, as of right now, Thursday, I haven't gotten any word that he's a hot lead to any of these head coaching jobs. I think he's keeping his own options open. And I think he feels the same way. We're talking about McDaniel as far as not wanting to force fit himself into a bad head coaching job versus what could be a good OC job, let's say with the Lions. What's up, Jeff? How you doing? Running late? No worries, brother. Thank you. Welcome to the chat. Sheila is queen. She wants to win and loves football. I mean, there's there's clear evidence of that. She came out when the Lions were really down in the dumps in Dan's onset when he came on initially and they were sort of struggling. She came out in his defense and things started to change. And I get that same sense here. And you hope that you have similar results coming out of this. What's up, Robert? Appreciate you, brother. New member to the Facebook family. I appreciate you, Robert Murphy. Says, hey, brother, who is your least interesting pick for our new OC? And happy Friday Eve, man. The least interesting pick. That's a good question, Robert. I appreciate you bringing that to the fold. I think the least interesting pick to me was David Blau. And I was so glad that was off the table. When that was brought up, I understood the connection, but I hated the fact that it could be another internal guy, someone they're comfortable with. So to me, that was the least interesting. I think after that, I think a guy like Jake Peetz would not be interesting to me. I don't think that brings enough flair or brings a sense of like ownership of the offensive coordinator job. So something like that, I would say, would be less interesting to me as well. I appreciate the question. Paul Jones says, McDaniel could learn to command the locker room from Dan. This is his best option realistically, but does Dan want him here? Right. That's a big question, Paul. And now I have heard, and based on what we read out of the joint practices when they were with Miami, they got along very well. What's up, Theo? How you doing? Welcome. Don't know says, do you think the fact that Dan has basically fired the OC midseason in 2 of his 5 years makes candidates apprehensive? That's a great question. It's possible. And you would think that'd be more in the mind of a guy who has less experience. And again, that's why I lean more towards someone with experience, with confidence coming into the role, because I think that is something to think about. And a guy like David Blau, Dan Orlovsky, if those two got into the mix or became the OC, you have to imagine that Dan Campbell halo hand is over your head at all times. Don't know says T. Martin. Yeah, that's another least interesting candidate. I agree with you. Intriguing, but not interesting. Blau was a favor to show interest. I think you might be right, Jeff. I think they were going to allow him to interview to go through the process. I think maybe that even did him a favor in getting the Washington Commanders OC job. So, if that helped him out, then so be it. What's up, Lyle? Welcome to the chat. It says if they trade Demo, what would they even expect to get? That's a great question. We hit on that a little bit last week, and then coming off the Brad Holmes press conference, Lyle, I appreciate the question. And it's a big topic right now is what do they do with David Montgomery? If they do trade him away, what is the value and what would the Lions look to get? We talked about them kind of bluffing for a second round pick, but I just don't think that's realistic. I'm thinking more fourth round. I hate to say that, and that's don't know. We just hit the same mark. I'm thinking the same thing. Fourth round pick, but the question, Lyle, then is that enough value to trade away? Some of it is going to be cap savings. Some of it's just going to be allowing Demo to move on to a different situation that might help him out. What's up, Chantel? How you doing? Good to see you. Welcome to the chat. Appreciate you. Appreciate you guys. Yeah, but I would prefer, Lyle, that the Lions try to keep him if they could. But based on what Brad Holmes said in his press conference and in some of the posts we saw from David Montgomery, it seems like they may have already had some conversations about what his fate is. We have not heard that to this point. So, we'll keep our ears to the ground. So it's a final now update from Detroit, from Little Caesars Arena. The Pistons have defeated the Phoenix Suns 108-105. Pistons with another victory here. And I think that is a perfect time to introduce a new segment to the channel. Yes, we've been talking Lions, but let's go around the D. Around the D with Johnny G. I just rhymed. I just made that one up. That I hadn't come up with till right now, but maybe we'll change it. So obviously now with the Pistons victory this evening, Detroit improves to 29-10, 28-10, 14-4 at home. Just incredible. Now the Phoenix Suns were undermanned today. They were without Devin Booker. So you obviously take that with a little grain of salt with their best player being out of the lineup. But at the same time, the Pistons had just lost a game to the Clippers where they were without some of their best players, which included Cade Cunningham in that matchup. So you take some, you get some, you leave some. And today, the Pistons took one. And they'll obviously take one coming off a loss to the Clippers. They get the victory tonight, 108-105 over the Phoenix Suns. But let's stay with the Pistons as we go around the D. Obviously, this year, coming off of last year's playoff loss to the Knicks, we knew the Pistons weren't far away and could compete, obviously, in the East. But were they just a few pieces away, a few minor tweaks away? And obviously this season, with some of those minor tweaks, they've now put themselves at the top of the East. It'll be 29-10 after tonight's victory. I feel like this team is showing true cohesion, the way that they are able to work together offensively, but maybe even more impressively, the way that they work together defensively. The top 10 offensive rating, top 5 defensive rating currently. I mean, and we talk about grit being that sort of thing that describes any Detroit sports team, and the way that the Pistons play defense shows true grit. So what it really comes down to in this segment here around the D is for the Pistons right now, sitting at 29-10 at the top of the East, do they need to make a trade with the upcoming trade deadline to put them over the top? We talk about all the time with the Lions making a splash move, or what is that move that's going to put them back into Super Bowl contention? Well, what is the move that's going to put the Pistons into championship contention? Because they are there. The argument could maybe be made they don't need to make a move. Are they good enough right now? Are they a legitimate title contender, or do they need reinforcements before the February 5th trade deadline? Let me know in the chat. I'd love to hear from you guys. Check in if you're a Pistons fan. Again, we're going around the D, hitting on our Lions, Pistons, Tigers, and Red Wings before we discuss the divisional round matchups coming up. Don't know Grit says, I have to be honest, that segment name is fire. Yeah, around the D, man. We're going to use that here on Thursdays as we'll talk about all 4 of the majors here as part of our Thursday night discussion. Jeff says, Johnny, I don't think it's long before you blow up. Part of the Dew crew, and I ride with you. Jeff, I appreciate you, and I really appreciate the Dew crew. Dan and those guys have been fantastic with me and for me. Dan is a fantastic guy. Honestly, he's had me on the show several times. Really nice, kind man, good person. And I appreciate the platform that he's allowed me to have a few times. And he's been on the show before. We'll have him back again. Jeff, obviously getting to know a few of you guys from the Dew crew and you guys coming over. It's been really fantastic to be able to share in conversation about Lions and Detroit sports. So I appreciate it. Jeff, I appreciate it. Yeah, bench is going to shorten come playoffs. And I think that's the issue, right? Is then what, like, to me, do the Pistons have enough scoring to win a championship? I think they do in the East. And I think they've proven they can get over the New York Knicks hump. That's just me. 7-game series, it's going to be a battle. But I think the Pistons have proven that they can get through the East, but can they defeat the powerful West teams with their current lineup with a shortened bench? Do they need another scorer? And I think that's really what it comes down to. Now, I've come about a good resource for Detroit Pistons basketball. Detroit Bad Boys, an affiliate of Super Bowl Nation and all those guys, they do a good job covering the Pistons, and obviously a great resource for anything that's going on currently. And they had come up with some trade scenarios for the Pistons that could potentially put them over the edge. And I'm not saying, this is not me supporting them making these moves specifically, but potential moves that would maybe put the Pistons over the top in these Eastern playoffs. One of the moves was getting Max Christie. So using an extension trade exception, Detroit could add Christie and bring more long-range shooting, something the team might need. A Jeremy Grant reunion was mentioned. By moving Tobias Harris, bringing Grant back in, it would supply more scoring and some spacing. Might get us a first-rounder back, too, depending on how you move things around. I've also heard Michael Porter Jr.'s name thrown around a lot. Big trade candidate talked about by multiple affiliates. They'd have to offer up Harris most likely. Jaden Ivey could be involved in that trade. a second-round pick, a future first potentially. I mean, there's a lot of things that would need to happen, but that would, again, bring instant scoring spacing to this offense. That's the one that kind of intrigues me a little bit. I got to be honest. I've heard Trey Murphy's name as well. Kind of controversial, but has a lot of upside there. Shooting and length. But again, do the Pistons already have some of that? So what is the right fit? And does it ultimately mess with the current cohesion the Pistons have going on? But right now, we got to enjoy where we're at with Pistons basketball. If you guys are not watching some Pistons basketball, I highly suggest it. They are truly rolling. Got a victory tonight again against the Suns, 108-105. They are on top of the Eastern Conference standings right now. And we got to love it. Got to love it. Let's talk about the Red Wings. Not only are the Pistons doing very well right now, but the Red Wings are also rolling. And I got a big question to you Red Wings fans out there and you experts, because I'm not going to sit here and claim I'm a Red Wing expert. Out of all the four major Detroit sports teams, I will honestly say I probably, unfortunately, get to watch the Red Wings the least, and it's just because of other things that are going on during the time hockey season is on. I grew up a Red Wings fan. Me and my family, watched 97, 98 when I was a kid. I remember, enjoying those series like crazy. So, I mean, again, I'm very familiar with the program, so don't get me wrong, but it's just obviously pouring time in the Lions took me away from some of the others. And the Red Wings, unfortunately, I need to get back into. But the one thing for me and the big question I have is, are we comfortable with how we're feeling about where the Red Wings are at right now? Because they've broken our hearts, especially last year and even the season before, where you get all excited because they're working themselves back into playoff contention. And you think, okay, now it's time to get back excited. The Yzerman era finally starting to show a little bit of promise, but then they dip off. So should I, and I guess I'm asking you Red Wings fans in the chat, should I be getting excited about this Red Wings team? Is this team different than teams of years past? Red Wings have had a little bit of a break, but they're going to host the San Jose Sharks this Friday. They will also be at home. Losing to Boston 3-0 here in their most recent matchup. But even their head coach, Todd McClellan, has publicly said he doesn't want his players focusing on the standings, right? I mean, you don't want them sitting there worried about that. He wants them to take it game by game. But for the fans, here's where things are. They sit second in the Atlantic Division with 60 points. That's pending any results tonight. They're just behind Tampa Bay, 8 points above the edge of playoff contention. So I think that's kind of the fear, right? And that's when I looked at the point standings. Yes, they are where they are, second, and you feel good, but they're literally within 8 points of falling completely out of it. And that's just a couple tough weeks of hockey for things to fall apart. So again, the ultimate question here is Red Wings fans, and you guys in chat, if we have any Red Wings fans with us tonight, should we be getting excited about this year's Red Wings team? Are they heading towards the playoffs? What's up, John Herman says, let's go Red Wings. Came back from 15 down twice. Absolutely, Johnny Herman. Jeff says, Red Wings have talent, but they need to get that guy who drops the gloves. Yeah, having an enforcer, especially in the playoffs, somebody who's willing to stand up for your star players. I totally understand that. Don't know says they need a blue liner, in my opinion, a piece to push them over the edge. I like it, and I appreciate you guys. We're going to get more and more Red Wings content involved here in the channel. So the more information and conversation we can have, I appreciate it. Again, right now with where they stand, we have every reason to get excited about where we're at with the Red Wings. The Wings coach is for real. They were horrible until that dude took over, says Paul Jones. I like that. Yeah, the standings race is close. Montreal, Buffalo, Boston, they're right trailing behind. Every point's going to matter. But right now, they're playing consistent. So, again, I think we should be getting excited about Red Wings, and I will watch more and more as they kind of get closer and closer to the playoffs. I'll keep you guys posted here as we move about hockey season. But one thing I wanted to mention, Red Wings world, before we head over to the Tigers, was the recent retirement of Sergei Fedorov. Now, when I talk about my Red Wings fandom, going back to those years, 97, 98, 01 or 02, whatever it was, one of my favorite players was Sergei Fedorov. Those Nike ads, the Nike skates, his swagger as he played hockey. When we were kids and we would go out and play in the street, roller hockey, that was everybody. Everybody wanted to be Sergei. I'm Sergei. You know what I mean? You're trying to emulate what he would do on the ice, and then wanted the pair of Nike skates or Nike rollerblades, you know? And so to me, Sergei Fedorov was hockey god when I was a kid. I mean, obviously things happened between him and the organization and things, you know, fell apart for a little while, but to see him come back and now be kind of in the same light as the Megatron thing, sort of brought back into the family for the Red Wings, and now obviously to retire the number, hang it in the rafters, the whole speech, everything was really cool. And to see one of your childhood heroes, you know, kind of get his due, I thought was really cool. So again, yeah, Paul says Fedorov was the best overall player in his time. He had two-way player. I mean, I remember him playing the blue line in the power play for the Wings, firing slap shots from the blue line. But not only could do that, obviously could take the puck from behind the net, travel the entire ice without being touched. You know, I mean, his skill set was unmatched. I agree with you, Paul. I mean, it was just really cool. So I didn't want to leave this segment without mentioning Sergei, because again, for me, number 91 meant a lot. And I think nobody else should wear that number in Red Wings history, because that number is Sergei Fedorov. So I was happy to see that. I hope you guys were too. Now let's get into the Tigers. And I'm not going to go too far into the weeds. Obviously, we're well in the offseason and all of the winter meetings and all that other stuff that comes along with baseball's offseason. And there's a lot involved with the process of contract negotiations and arbitration and all that process. And I'm not going to go into the weeds with that. But I feel like the news that I'm reading in regards to the Tigers' negotiations with Skubal, starting back when the talks began, when he first became the ace he is now, and the idea of the Tigers having to re-sign an ace pitcher and all that came to fruition, and now they are where they are. But to have to read about the arbitration process and everything that's happened between the Tigers and Skubal to this point, it sounds like they are $13 million off as far as the annual contract negotiations are concerned. And again, when you look at it as far as 1 year term, 13 million is beyond far apart. Because if you stretch that in to get a longer term contract, that's huge money. And I don't think the Tigers were ever willing to pay that kind of money for him. You have to consider also his age. He's a fastball throwing pitcher. So how much time does he truly have left as a dominant ace? I'm not saying he doesn't have several good years ahead of him, but I'm just saying, how much money are you willing to pay that and leverage everything else you would do with your roster? And I think the Tigers knew this all along, and just it seems to me like this process now through arbitration is all for nothing. It really seems all for nothing. Like they were never going to make this deal from the get-go. And this comes from Bless You Boys, which again is another good Tigers affiliate with Super Bowl Nation. They say, were the Tigers ever trying to truly get a deal done? According to local coverage, there was never a serious negotiation push from the Tigers to find common ground. The Free Press reported that Detroit's offer prior to the arbitration filing was around $19.8 million, and then they dropped to $19 million on the official ARB filing, showing they weren't even close to meeting in the middle. Meanwhile, from the Skubal side, represented by Scott Boras, we all know that name, one of the most influential agents in the sport. The $32 million proposal wasn't just about 2026 pay. It's about setting market value ahead of free agency and the next collective bargaining cycle. Boras is smart. He's playing the system to maximize Skubal's leverage. So were they trying? The optics say no. There was a big PR push from either side. No serious middle ground explored. And reports suggest the Tigers were comfortable taking this all the way to arbitration. That's pretty telling. And again, that's according to Bless You Boys. So I appreciate the reporting there. But I ultimately what I get out of that is that these two parties were never going to try and make this happen. And to me, this is everything that's wrong with baseball in the offseason. I can't stand this arbitration process and all these big high price agents. I would say when it came down to it, the Tigers will probably be fine moving away from Skubal. I'd be curious if they still work out some sort of trade, or are they just going to let him play this out and then go take a contract elsewhere? So to me, that's the biggest news surrounding the Tigers. I'd love to hear from you guys. Paul Jones says we don't need Skubal. Sorry to say. Trevor Arnold says Tom Brady wants to help coach the Lions. Hire him. Hey, bring him on board. Let's go. John Herman says happy for Sergey. Loved watching him play. Me too, buddy. John Herman says, don't want to sound like a jinx, but hopefully the Red Wings and Pistons don't fall off after the All-Star games like the Tigers did. Biggest fall off ever. Yeah, that was a very big disappointment. It's funny. It's like as great as the comeback the year before to get into the playoffs. I mean, they had to roll to turn things around. Historically last year, they had an equally bad fall off this year, John. So I'm with you, buddy. Paul Jones says, Wojo reported that Boras won't even come to the table with a counteroffer. I think he knew. He knows. He knows the Tigers aren't serious, and he knows the Tigers aren't going to pony up the dough. So I think right now it's just him trying to get as much money for his client elsewhere as he can. Drive that up, make it seem like the Tigers were willing to go to that number, even though they probably were never going to pay it anyways. Don't know Grit says Skubal get overpaid by LA and win a World Series and then just be pretty good after that. Hey, not from the Skubal side, nothing wrong with that. Unless Skubal would rather live in Detroit his whole life. And I don't know. He doesn't seem like Mr. Loyalty. Lyle says, I love McKinstry, but compare his contract to the other guys signed. Why is he getting higher money, especially given his offense fall off late? That's fair. That's fair. Tiger... expect the whole expectancy contract not living up to the dollar amount that you're going to let him sign for. But that's a good point, Lyle. I guess is there any thought here that through this arbitration process, with the way the Tigers are handling this, I mean, I guess you could argue it the other way, where maybe the Skubal side is really what's messing this up. But is this risking long-term harm for the Lions or for the Tigers in future negotiations? Is this Skubal situation just different than the others in a sense of like maybe the Tigers won't end up in a ace? How much money negotiating are you going to pay? I guess that's the other side of this. Like you hope that the Tigers will be in many situations where as their farm system grows and they start to call up some of these guys, you end up having to pay large contracts. That's obviously the dream scenario if the players develop and you put yourself in that case. So if they don't sign Skubal now or even make it seem as if they're going to make an attempt to meet somewhere in the middle, does that hurt their future negotiations with other star players, other star pitchers potentially? I don't know. But I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate you for going through our first segment of Around the D. All right, so now let's get into NFL Divisional Round football. I just got excited saying that out loud. I got really pumped on the inside. I got all warm and fuzzy. I would have gotten more warm and fuzzy if our freaking Lions would have been in the NFL Divisional Round, but they're not. So we're going to move forward without them. We talked about the lessons learned from Wild Card Weekend. Now we're going to dive into the Divisional Round matchups. Okay? And you see we got the teams lined up on the left here. The final 8. Buffalo, Denver, San Francisco, Seattle, Houston, New England, Chicago, and the LA Rams. The final 8. So first question for chat before we dive into the actual matchups themselves. Do you believe these are the best 8 teams left? You think the NFL and the playoff system and everything that's happened so far has left us with the 8 best teams heading into the divisional round? I would love to hear from you guys. As we go through each matchup, let me know who you like, what the final score of these games will be, or what you think they will be. Last weekend, wild card round, I went 2 for 6. So not a great weekend, honestly, for my picks. And I'll own up to that. But I think there were some surprises. I think I missed the Green Bay game because Green Bay fell off. I think the Eagles just weren't the Eagles. So, I mean, a couple of those games, a little bit of a surprise. But ultimately, we are where we are. So we're going to go through these games in detail. The first game on Saturday, a 4:30 p.m. kickoff, CBS. We got an AFC matchup. The Buffalo Bills will travel to face the number 1 seed Denver Broncos. Questions surrounding Josh Allen's true health. Now, he's going to play. Don't get me wrong. He's playing this game. But he was banged up in the wild card round, came back and had the superhero performance. A lot of short passes, but again, carrying the offense with his toughness. Obviously, the quarterback sneaks, the ground and pound. I mean, he was able to carry the Buffalo Bills to victory. Can he do it again in the divisional round against a very tough defense opponent in the Denver Broncos? It's a great way to kick off divisional round. I think it's an interesting matchup. I really think you could kind of pick this one down the middle. It's the first time the Broncos have hosted a playoff game in a decade, so obviously the experience would lean in Buffalo's favor. Although they're going on the road, Buffalo has shown that they can go on the road and win tough football games in the playoffs. Josh Allen obviously proven. Can the Buffalo defense get timely stops in this game against a Denver offense coming in with a young quarterback in Bo Nix? You know, and this is sort of a get-back game for the Broncos, who obviously their season was ended last year by the Bills. So, I mean, there's a lot of storyline here, and I'd love to hear from you guys. Who do you have? Buffalo in Denver? Right now, the spread is -1.5 against the Broncos. Slightly favored in this one, being the home number 1 seed. You know, can Buffalo get their rushing game going to where Josh Allen becomes even more effective? And can Bo Nix ultimately be the better quarterback in this matchup? And we talked about last week kind of what the difference makers were in some of those wild card games. The dynamic quarterback play really can carry the day. And to me, that makes the difference in this one. When I look at, and obviously I don't go head-to-head. No quarterbacks are going head-to-head. But when you think about which one of these quarterbacks will be able to make the tough throw, able to make the gutsy play, has the experience in the right situation to know how to handle themselves. And I really think Josh Allen has proven that he can be Superman. And until Bo Nix proves himself, that's the situation we're in. I really believe that Buffalo, through their experience, can hang in there. If their defense is able to get some timely stops, I think Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills can score points against the Broncos on the road. I think it's going to be very close, but I'm taking the Buffalo Bills in this divisional round matchup. I will take Buffalo over Denver in a very close one. Don't Know Gris says defense wins this game, in my opinion, Denver. That's fair. Again, there was a big topic we had this week is the defense carrying the day, even through the wild card round. Teams like the Houston Texans, the New England Patriots stepped up and played really well defensively, and Denver has that capability. If Denver can stop Buffalo's run, then that, to me, flips the game. But the problem, even with that, is you still have a quarterback that's able to take over. Can he do it against the Denver Broncos? So it's tough for me, and I tend to agree with you, Don't Know Grip, but I'm going to go against you on this one. I'm actually going to take Buffalo. I'm going to stick with my pick there. Theo also has Denver, so I might be in the minority with this one. Robert, we're going to get to that matchup in just a minute, and I'll give you your flowers. I appreciate it. The second matchup of Divisional Round weekend is Saturday, 8 o'clock. This one on Fox. San Francisco, maybe the surprise victory of wildcard weekend over the Eagles, will head to face the number 1 seed Seattle Seahawks. And I think, to me, again, if I'm going to be a pusher of what the quarterback play means in these matchups, then when you look at the two quarterbacks here, Brock Purdy, Sam Darnold, experience would lean to Purdy, but I think season-wise, Sam Darnold has had the better year. He's been healthier than Brock Purdy has been. So I think in this particular matchup, the quarterback play is sort of a wash. So I don't know if I can lean on that here. So then you go back to, well, these teams have squared off this season already, and it really, to me, Seattle had the leg up on San Francisco all year long. So to me, Seattle is a huge favorite in this game. Obviously, Vegas agrees. They are -7 at this point against San Francisco, who will, again, they'll be out without George Kittle. Fred Warner is not coming back. He's not being activated for this game. So as heroic as the San Francisco defense played in the wild card round, I think it's going to be even tougher on the road in Seattle against a more consistent, at least this year, Seattle offense. So I think this is probably the point where the San Francisco magic runs out. I do believe that Seattle's just the healthier team, the more rested team. I really give a lot of credit to San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan, Robert Saleh, and everything they did to get them to the playoffs, to win a football game, to beat the Eagles last week. That is a huge accomplishment. And it wouldn't surprise me if they hung in there in this game, but I just think Seattle sort of has the 49ers number in a lot of ways, based on how they played them this year, based on how they're all both teams are coming into this matchup. And I'm not a huge Sam Darnold guy, but I just think he's kind of owed one, and this might be the one that he gets here. So to me, I have Seattle. I would actually take them minus the points as well. So I would take Seattle -7 in this matchup. Lyle says, if Darnold doesn't play, maybe Seattle gets upset. Chicago plays over their head against LA, would be home throughout. Yeah, we're going to get to that one here in just a minute. Paul says Niners by 3. Interesting. It'll be a close one. Thank you, Lyle. A little update. So Sam Darnold, let's put this on screen. Seahawks quarterback currently listed as questionable due to an oblique injury he sustained during practice. However, he's confident that he will be ready to play in the upcoming playoff game. He's going to push it. There's no way he sits this out. That would have to be very serious. And the way they even phrase it, I think I wouldn't even come out with that information, but I get it. If there's any possibility. Now, if he doesn't play, I think I'll say this, and I don't know if you guys will give me the reprieve. I think he does play, and if he does play, even if he's a little bit banged up, I still would take Seattle. I may not take them with the points. So I guess what I would do, I will adjust. I'll take Seattle to win the game straight up, but I think San Francisco could cover because they're being given 7 points right now. If Sam Darnold doesn't play, then I would actually take the 49ers. But again, with Sam Darnold in the lineup, with these teams going in as I think they will, I'm gonna stick with that pick. I do think Seattle advances either way. So let me know who you guys got. We got Sam Darnold potentially out. We got the Seahawks. We got the 49ers. Who do you guys have in that matchup? Let me know in the chat. moving into the Sunday games, 3 o'clock kickoff. This one on ESPN, actually. We're going to have the Houston Texans traveling to face the New England Patriots. New England coming off the victory over the Chargers, and then the Houston Texans over the Steelers on Monday. It's a little less rest for the Texans in this particular matchup, but what we do know about the Texans is that defense will travel. New England was involved in a low-scoring affair against the Chargers, and they are obviously facing a much more difficult defensive opponent. Right now, New England is favored. They are -3 points in this matchup. But I'm going to be honest with you, in this one, I'm going to take the upset. I think when we're talking about defense traveling, defense carrying the day, defense winning championships, and I know I kind of went against that in the first game of the weekend, Buffalo and Denver. But to me, Buffalo and Denver is more about the quarterback overcoming the defense. In this one, Houston and New England, I just don't think Drake May's overcoming the Houston Texans. Drake May's had a great year. Getting that win in the wild card was fantastic, but I think going up against this Houston defense is a different story. And because of that, I would take the Houston Texans. And I just think that defense is very scary. Theo's taking Seattle. Don't know, says everything in me says Seattle wins, but the last time I picked against the Niners, it didn't work out. I'm with you. I did the same thing. And I hate to pick against the Niners. Actually, I'm going to talk about another team that I'm going to be scared to pick against here in a minute. But I'm with you. Let me know, who do you got, Houston or New England in that second AFC matchup of the Divisional Round weekend? Guys, if you haven't already, make sure to slap that like button. It is the best free way to help out the channel. If you're watching us live for the first time, welcome. Johnny Gaz Sports live on Tuesdays and Thursdays, Facebook and YouTube. I'm available on all the socials, though. If you look up at Johnny Gaz Sports, I will have daily Detroit Lions NFL content. Appreciate you guys for hanging around. We're going through the divisional round matchups, previewing a few of these games, giving my scores and previews and predictions. We have one more matchup to go through, and I think it's the one we're all interested in this weekend. The Sunday kickoff, 6:30 p.m. This will be an NBC or Peacock game. The LA Rams will travel to Chicago to face Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams, and the Bears. That's probably the one I'm looking forward to the most. I think it's going to be a really close matchup. I think regardless of what happens, it's hard to pick against the Bears. And I don't mean that because I'm a Bears supporter or I necessarily want them to win. But I picked against them in the wild card round, and they somehow came back and won that football game. They almost came back and beat the Lions in Week 18. They've done that in previous weeks. They did it to the Packers the week before the Lions, or a couple weeks before the Lions. So it's just the Bears have some kind of magic around them that's hard to get around. But I think they're going to be playing the most complete team that they'll face here now against the Rams. It will be their toughest test, and I think it'll be the most difficult to fall behind and come back from. So Chicago, if they are wanting to win this divisional round game, they cannot put themselves in the same scenario. Caleb Williams has been fantastic, and he has the ability to do it again here. He can still work his magic. The Bears' offense can get rolling. We know what Ben Johnson can cook up. I think the true question is, can the Bears' defense continue to be opportunistic? Do they force turnovers that affect the Rams enough to flip this game in the Bears' favor? If the Bears cannot force turnovers, I do think the Rams can walk this Bears defense up and down the field. The passing attack of the Rams can take advantage of a poor Bears passing defense. When they're not getting turnovers, they're not great in coverage. So I think the typical things the Bears have been doing have to come to fruition again for this magic to continue. And I can't pick the Bears. The way that they're winning is it can't be sustainable. But I said that last week, and they did it again. So does Ben Johnson have the magic to make this happen one more week and get them to a conference championship? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you guys. Who do you have? Rams, Bears? Right now, the Rams are favored. They are -4.5. To me, this is the most exciting matchup of the weekend. Sean McVay versus Ben Johnson. Those are two fantastic football minds going up against each other. Matt Stafford, Caleb Williams. You got the MVP, the gutsy old veteran against the young pup. I mean, there's a lot of great storylines in this matchup. A lot of fun to watch. Yeah, Puka could explode, Lyle. I think you're right. Lyle says it out. I think Puka will have 200 yards. He could just dominate the Bears. I mean, and that could be the end of the story. Him and Devontae Adams really have a physical leg up against the Bears secondary. They could take over. They really could. Robert says, I don't know if Ben has been fantastic. They don't show up for 3/4 of the game. He's overrated. I don't know, Robert. I mean, listen, I hear you. I respect you. You know I do. I love you, buddy. I don't think we can say he's overrated. He got the team from where they were last year to where they are now. I think it's hard for Lions fans to see some of the other stuff that is happening with the Bears. I agree with you, Robert. The way they're winning is not sustainable. That's got to change. I don't think it will work here against the Rams. So that's the bottom line. I'm kind of with you there, but I don't think I'd call Ben Johnson overrated. I don't love some of the things he does. I didn't like the way he presented himself at the end of the game. But I besides that, if I was a Bears fan, I'd be very excited about it. You know what I mean? So like, I can't sit here and say, and then we experienced it too. I felt like we went through it as well. So in this one, I'm picking the Rams. I think the Bears magic ends in the last game of the divisional round here, divisional round weekend. I really believe Matt Stafford, the MVP, will carry this team against the Bears. So I truly think it's Matt Stafford's time yet again. So I will take the Rams -4.5 over the Bears here in the divisional round. So quickly to go back through it, I have Buffalo in a close one over Denver, leaning on the experience of Josh Allen in that particular matchup. I'm going to take Seattle over San Francisco in the late game on Saturday. I just think everything happening in Seattle, I do think Sam Darnold will play, will battle through that injury. I think the home field advantage and then everything playing against San Francisco as far as the injuries will finally catch up to him in that matchup. But I think Seattle kind of runs away with that one. I have an upset with Houston going into New England, getting a victory on the strength of that defense. And finally, I have Matt Stafford and the LA Rams taking out the Chicago Bears and Ben Johnson in the divisional round. So that would leave us with Buffalo versus Houston, Seattle versus the Rams in the conference championship matchups, if my picks are correct. What would you think of that? Buffalo, Houston, Seattle, LA for conference championship matchups. Would that excite you going into the conference championship round? Robert says, I hear you. I appreciate you, buddy. And I always respect your opinion, buddy. Look, if he loses, then they still have questions that they got to answer. And it's not like going into next year, they got everything figured out. They still got to continue this, show it's sustainable. Can Caleb Williams continue his ascension? Does that offensive line hold up? So there's still questions there, and he's got to prove it again next year. What's up, Lions today? He says, go Lions. Love it, buddy. Appreciate you. Theo says, BJ has the Bears believing in themselves and to have hope late for comebacks, but I don't think they can handle the weapons the Rams have. Rams win. I'm with you, Theo. I'm with you, buddy. I appreciate you. Appreciate you all for getting involved in chat today. Thank you so much for coming around for another edition of Johnny Gaz Live on a Thursday. I hope you enjoyed Around the D. We touched on a lot of topics surrounding all the Detroit sports teams today. It's the first time we've kind of gone through that, so let me know what you think. If you are a fan of one of the other Detroit sports teams and would like more content for your Tigers, for your Red Wings, for your Pistons, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. We'll always have good Lions content for you. All the breaking news and updates will continue. The OC search continues. And I will keep you guys updated once that news is dropped. Once that news hits, you will know. We'll talk about the OC hire and what that will mean for the Lions. But before we go today, I do have one more topic. We'll circle back to our Lions. We'll circle back to our Lions for just one last topic before we end the day. Comes from DetroitLions.com. It was an interview with Penei Sewell, and they talked about some of the issues that occurred with the offensive line over 2025. And to put this kind of in context, in 2025, the Lions offensive line finished 12th in Pro Football Focus rankings. That's middle of the league. Certainly not where they wanted to be with Super Bowl aspirations or where they were in previous seasons. So the offseason, it's not about just getting a little bit better. It's about reestablishing the identity of their offensive line. I mean, we know because of the new starters in the interior spots, we know with the Ragnow retirement, you had to really make up a lot. But one of the consistent things, obviously, was your right tackle was Penei Sewell. And this is a quote directly from Penei Sewell as part of this article. He says, going into the offseason, we just got to find who we are and get our swagger and confidence back. Let me repeat that. It says, going into the offseason, we just got to find who we are and get our swagger and confidence back. So he knows, he recognizes it. I think he understands what the offensive line needs to look like heading into next season. And obviously, Penei Sewell understands the importance of how that relates to the Detroit Lions offense, and that protection and the run game effectiveness all helps the quarterback, Jared Goff. The lack of mobility in Goff causes the Lions offensive line to be even more important in their situation. So what Penei Sewell is saying is very true. They have to get the swagger and confidence back. They have to develop the identity they had in previous years, be able to run the football, run the play action game, ultimately protect their quarterback, Jared Goff, to make him the most efficient quarterback that he can be. And that efficient quarterback can win a Super Bowl. That's how important this offensive line is. Relating back to the offensive coordinator hire, that in coordination with what they do on the offensive line, revamping their entire offensive scheme, hoping that they develop an identity defensively through additions on the defensive line, getting healthy in the back end, shoring up your linebackers led by Jack Campbell. There's a lot of good there. But a lot of decisions have to be made, and they have to be made with intent, with purpose, with an idea to put the Lions over the top in these areas so that they can get this swagger and confidence back. So I love that quote from Penei Sewell, and I know it only relates to the offensive line for what he was talking about, but I think it relates to the entire Lions organization. So I think it's a great article. DetroitLions.com does great work. A lot of exclusives, a lot of photos you don't see. So if you haven't checked out their website, I would highly recommend it. And again, a lot of good stories come out of there. I thought it'd be a great way for us to end the day. Robert says, yeah, I really appreciate the disagreement we can have. It makes this discussion really dynamic. Good stuff, Johnny Gaz Sports. Love the stream. I appreciate you, Robert. And that's why we do it. And again, don't look, my word is not the final word on anything. Matter of fact, ask my wife. I'm not right about anything. So for me to sit down here and tell you that you're wrong, Robert, that'd be wrong on me. So saying Ben Johnson's overrated, that's not a wrong statement. We just got to see if he can prove it. And if he can't prove it next year, if the Bears fall off, then you may be onto something, my man. But I'm with you. And more than anything, I appreciate you are involved in the channel. Again, Robert's a member, a subscriber to the Facebook side. You can actually subscribe over there for a small monetary fee. I just came out with a highlights review of the top 10 plays from 2025 for the Detroit Lions. That came out on my Facebook membership as well as my YouTube membership. But again, there is always free content for you at Johnny Gaz Sports on all those socials, so no worries. Don't Know Grit says, I know that Penei knows they need the swagger. He is swagger, but the other four guys next season need to embody it too. I think that's kind of what he's getting at. Like, that's him pushing the organization, and I'm sure he'll push the other guys around him. So I really believe that a statement like that just sets the tone. He's done that since he was drafted from in the beginning. It was just from his play, from his aura, from his work ethic. But now it's about leading through example, through your speech, through communication. I think this is part of what that is. So you love to see that from your leader. I love that quote. But I'm going to wrap it right there, guys. We're just over an hour. Again, I appreciate everybody that was involved in the chat. Robert, Don't Know Grit, Theo, Lyle, Jeff, Paul Jones. I appreciate all you guys. Johnny Herman, Jeff, Broski Bear. Broski Bear's having a real good weekend, I'm sure. Chantel, I appreciate all you guys. If I missed anybody, again, I'm sorry, but I appreciate you for coming around, hanging out in the chat. Again, we'll be back next week, Tuesday and Thursday. We're going to be live, but I'll have breaking news for you over the course of the week as the Lions get this offensive coordinator hire done. So be on the lookout for that. We'll have Lions content. We'll hopefully have Pistons, Red Wings, Tigers content all over the offseason. So be on the lookout for that. Make sure to check out at Don't Know Grit on all your socials as well. He joined us on Tuesday and will join us in future episodes. For those of you that have come over for Lions Talk Live, Dan goes live every morning. And then throughout the day as breaking news happens, but every morning he is a great news and update resource for your Lions. Appreciate Dan and the Duke crew. Appreciate y'all. All right, guys. You all have a fantastic evening. I appreciate you all. Enjoy your Friday, your Saturday, your Sunday, whatever you have going on. Enjoy the divisional round playoff games. I'll be checking with you throughout the weekend. I'll be posting, my picks, some score predictions, everything we talked about here today in a short form. So be on the lookout for that. More than anything, take care of yourself and that mental health. It is so important. It means everything. And you can't take care of the things around you if you're not taking care of yourself. I love you guys. Go Lions.